North Korea. The United Nations says the human rights situation is getting worse. People cannot speak, cannot move, cannot eat freely. Families of the disappeared are still waiting for answers. Venezuela. 7,000 people have been released from prison, but torture continues. Political prisoners are still detained. Iran. A school was bombed on the first day of US-Israel airstrikes. At least 168 people were killed. Most of them were children. The UN is now investigating this as a possible war crime. A second finding: Israel bombed the prison in Tehran. The UN calls it a war crime. Bahrain. Dozens of people arrested for posting on social media, for attending a peaceful protest. Some face the death penalty. China. A Uyghur researcher tells his story. His father has been in prison for years for being Uyghur. Hungary. Police ban a march for trans rights. A wider attack on freedom is underway. Now, everything you need to know. Briefly and to the point. This is the Human Rights. Subscribe to our channel. And now, let's begin. Now to North Korea. On March 16th, the United Nations Human Rights Council met in Geneva. The UN High Commissioner gave an update on North Korea, the country officially called the DPRK. The message was simple and serious.
Since my last update, the population of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea has been subjected to further repression and isolation.
What does repression and isolation mean in real life? People in North Korea cannot speak freely. They cannot move freely, even inside their own country. They do not have full access to food or health care.
Fundamental rights are severely curtailed, including freedom of expression, the right to information, freedom of movement, as well as access to food and health care.
Families are separated. In South Korea, Japan, and other countries, families are waiting. They want news about relatives who disappeared inside North Korea. The North Korean government gives them no answers.
Families of the disappeared in the Republic of Korea, Japan, and other countries continue to seek answers from the DPRK without success.
If people try to leave North Korea without permission, they face serious danger. If another country sends them back by force, they are detained and tortured. The UN said again this week.
I again urge all governments to stop forcibly repatriating DPRK nationals.
In January 2026, there was a rare moment of justice. A court in Tokyo, Japan, held the North Korean government responsible for human rights violations against 4 victims. The court ordered North Korea to pay damages.
When the Tokyo District Court held the DPRK government responsible for human rights violations suffered by 4 victims and awarded damages.
This is rare. In most cases, no one is punished for what happens in North Korea. The UN has published 24 reports about North Korea since 2014. They describe decades of repression, but the situation has still never been sent to the International Criminal Court.
I urge states to seek a referral to the ICC and to exercise extraterritorial and universal jurisdiction.
And this week, Human Rights Watch added its voice. Lina Yoon wrote that the world pays too much attention to North Korea's missiles and not enough attention to the people inside the country. On March 13th, UN Special Rapporteur Elizabeth Salmon told the Human Rights Council new fences have been built on the North Korean border. More guards have been placed. People who try to leave are shot on sight. In the whole of 2025, only 223 North Koreans made it to South Korea. Human Rights Watch is calling on governments to give money to organizations that monitor North Korea. Recent US spending cuts have reduced support for these groups. This is a serious problem. Monitoring is essential. Now to Venezuela. On January 3rd, the United States launched a military intervention in Venezuela. The Venezuelan government declared a state of emergency.
The situation in Venezuela has been dominated by the US military intervention on the 3rd of January and its aftermath.
Under the state of emergency, security forces and armed civilian groups used harsh measures against people. This created a climate of fear.
The security forces and armed civilian groups reportedly used this as the basis for intrusive measures, contributing to a climate of fear among the population.
On February 19th, Venezuela passed a new amnesty law. The government says about 7,700 people have been released.
According to the authorities, some 7,700 people have been released unconditionally under the law.
Among those freed are human rights defenders, journalists, political leaders, and trade unionists. Some well-known names: Javier Tarazona, Eduardo Torres, Kennedy Tejeda, Carlos Julio Rojas, Rosio San Miguel.
While I share the relief of those who have been freed and their loved ones, they should never have been detained in the first place.
But the UN confirmed torture is still happening.
My office has received information about the continued torture and mistreatment of detainees, including in the Rodeo 1 and Fuerte Huacaipuro centers.
People with disabilities, elderly people, and at least one child are still held in detention.
Civic space remains restricted. Years of repression mean that people fear speaking out.
The NGO oversight law still prevents civil society from working freely. The UN gave Venezuela 5 clear steps to take. 1. Release all people still arbitrarily detained, immediately, unconditionally. 2. Protect civil society, journalists, and human rights defenders. 3. Reform the justice and security systems. Dismantle the laws used to punish peaceful dissent. 4. Guarantee access to healthcare, food, and work. 5. Create a plan for transitional justice. Heal Venezuela's deep divisions. The UN also urged Venezuela to reverse its decision to leave the International Criminal Court.
And I encourage the authorities to reverse their decision to leave the International Criminal Court.
Now to Iran. On February 20th, the United States and Israel launched airstrikes across Iran. More than 1,000 civilians have been reported killed. Hospitals have been destroyed. World heritage sites have been damaged. 3 million people are displaced inside Iran. In many cities, there were no air raid sirens, no bomb shelters, nowhere to go. On March 17th, the UN fact-finding mission on Iran held a press conference in Geneva. This mission investigates human rights violations in Iran. Now it is also watching the armed conflict very closely. One event is at the center of the investigation. On February 20th, the very first day of the airstrikes, a school in Minab was bombed. Minab is a city in the south of Iran.
Attacks destroyed the school in Minab in the southern province of Iran. We have credible reports that we have been considering, which indicate a killing of at least 168 people, and we know that the vast majority of them were girl students, many of them as young as 7.
168 people killed, most of them girls, some only 7 years old. The mission is investigating who is responsible and whether this is a war crime. They asked for access to Iran. So far, no access has been granted.
We don't have access to Iran. We have asked for that access and will continue to seek that access.
The mission also said whatever the US government's own investigation finds, an independent investigation must follow.
Given the innocent lives that have been lost, there is a critical need for such an investigation to be done and for an independent outcome to follow.
There is also an internet blackout inside Iran. This makes it very hard to know what is happening on the ground.
In relation to the internet blackout, it is of particular concern to us that internet blackout continues. We know that already that internet blackout resulted in the difficult situation of cloaking the Iranian government's response to the January protests. The difficulty, of course, in understanding what's happening on the ground right now.
The mission fears that with the internet cut off, the Iranian government may be increasing repression of protesters. Past patterns show this is a real risk. The mission also made a separate finding. In June 2025, Israel struck Evin prison in Tehran. Evin prison is one of Iran's most well-known prisons. It holds political prisoners.
What we have established is that it was an armed conflict between Iran and Israel in June of 2025, and that as a result of that, civilians and civilian infrastructure had to be protected under the laws of war. We found further that Evin prison is such a civilian infrastructure, and that Israel deliberately, it appears to us, on the evidence that we have collated and which you'll be able to find in our conference room report, which will be released later today, that there are credible grounds to believe that that was a strike on the prison.
Israel said it struck the prison, but Israel gave no justification. There is no Israeli investigation. The UN says one is urgently needed.
Israel had said that it had struck Evin prison. It had made that clear. And it has not, in our assessment, it has not provided a justification for why that strike had taken place, which justifies the attack on the civilians that were included in the prison.
Now to Bahrain. Since February 28th, Bahraini authorities have arrested dozens of people. Why? For posting a video online, for going to a peaceful protest, for expressing an opinion on social media. On March 6th, Bahrain banned all protests. The reason given, public safety. But Human Rights Watch investigated. HRW spoke to 9 people, including family members of those arrested. Here are the cases. Hussein Naji and Ali Mahdi were arrested while walking peacefully toward the US Embassy. The march was non-violent. The charge, inciting hatred against the government. Munir Mirza Ahmed Mushaima was taken from his home at 3:30 in the morning. About 30 men arrived, some in uniform, some in plain clothes. No arrest warrant, no explanation. A 16-year-old boy had his phone checked by plainclothes police. His father was arrested the next day. No warrant, no reason given. Badur Abdul Hamid was arrested for social media posts. For 5 days, she could not call her family. Her family did not know where she was. This is called enforced disappearance. Under international law, it is a crime. Many of those arrested are migrant workers. They make up over 53% of Bahrain's population. They have even less legal protection than citizens. On March 9th, Bahrain's public prosecution said it is seeking the death penalty for some defendants. The reason given, espionage. Human Rights Watch opposes the death penalty in all circumstances. And HRW was clear about what is happening. Now to China. This week, Human Rights Watch published a personal story. It is written by Yalkun Uluyol, a researcher at HRW, and a Uyghur himself. This Ramadan, Yalkun is fasting, but he cannot break his fast with his father. His father is in a Chinese prison, sentenced to 16 years for being Uyghur. Who are the Uyghur people? They come from Xinjiang in northwest China. Since 2016, the Chinese government has carried out mass arbitrary detention, forced labor, mass surveillance, and unjust imprisonment of Uyghurs. The UN and many experts say these actions amount to crimes against humanity. Yalkun's father, Mehmet Yakub, disappeared in June 2018. For 2 years, Yalkun did not know if his father was alive. Then he found out. 16-year prison sentence. Yalkun still does not know the reason. And the repression does not stop at China's borders. When Uyghurs living abroad speak out, Chinese police threaten and intimidate them. This is called transnational repression. Some Uyghurs are pressured to spy on their own communities or to make propaganda videos for the Chinese government. Yalkun posted a photo of his newborn daughter online. He hoped relatives in China might see it. Instead, police interrogated multiple people for viewing the image. His account was banned. His daughter passed away in 2023. She was 2 years old. His father in prison never knew he had a granddaughter. This story is deeply personal, but it is not unique. Hundreds of thousands of Uyghur families are living through the same thing. This week, as the Human Rights Council meets in Geneva, Uyghur rights advocates are calling again for an independent investigation. China has never been held accountable. Now to Hungary. The Budapest police have banned a planned demonstration. The demonstration was planned for the International Day of Transvisibility. People wanted to march. They wanted to be seen. The police said no. This is not the first time. In 2025, Hungary passed a law that allows authorities to ban any events connected to LGBT people. The stated reason: child protection. But Hungary has not provided any evidence that LGBT events harm children. In June 2025, a record crowd defied the ban and marched for Budapest Pride. It became a march for democracy itself. The government's response was immediate. Criminal charges were brought against the mayor of Budapest and against a pride organizer in the city of Pécs. Those cases are now paused while Hungary's constitutional court reviews the 2025 law. HRW researcher Cristian González Cabrera explained, under international human rights law, peaceful assembly cannot be restricted because a government disagrees with the message. That is a basic rule of democracy. What is happening in Hungary is a warning for all of Europe. When one group loses the right to be seen in public, everyone's freedom becomes less safe.